You're moving to assisted living next month. We've already picked the facility. That's what my son told me. He stood in my Colorado mountain lodge, the one I built with timber I cut myself 40 years ago, and informed me I was being relocated. His wife nodded along, her eyes already measuring the living room for her interior designer. They had no idea their struggling old man, the one they thought was barely scraping by on Social Security, was sitting on a $90 million fortune. I just smiled, poured myself another coffee, and let them talk. Their eviction notice would pair of elk move through the clearing when I heard the sound that changed everything. The aggressive crunch of expensive tires on my gravel driveway. I didn't need to look to know who it was. My son Michael drove a Range Rover that cost more than most people make in a year. Sure enough, the gleaming black SUV rolled to a stop, and out stepped my son and his wife Jessica. Michael was wearing what he always wore, a tailored peacoat that probably cost $3,000. Jessica had on her fur-lined boots and carried a designer bag that could feed a family for a month. They looked like they were going to a ski resort, not visiting their father. They didn't knock. Michael had a key. The door swung open, and a blast of cold air rushed in along with their presence. "Dad," Michael called out, not warmly. It was the tone you'd use for a subordinate. "We need to talk." Jessica was already walking through my living room with her phone out, taking pictures of my furniture, of my walls, of my life. "What are you doing?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "Just documenting," she said, not looking up from her phone. "For the listing." Michael came over, but he didn't hug me. He didn't ask how I was. He just launched right into it. "Dad, we've made a decision. This," he gestured around at my home, "isn't sustainable anymore." "Sustainable?" I repeated. "You're 64 years old, living alone in the middle of nowhere. Last month you didn't answer your phone for 2 days. Do you know how worried we were? I'd been in Denver closing a deal. My phone had died. But I told Michael I was going to be out of touch. He either forgot or didn't care to remember. "I'm fine, Michael. I told you I was traveling." Jessica laughed, a sharp sound. "Traveling? Dad, you barely leave the house. You're becoming isolated. It's not healthy." "We've found a great place," Michael continued, pulling out a brochure from his coat. "Silver Peak Senior Living. It's only 20 minutes from our house." They have activities, medical staff on site, chef-prepared meals. He slid the glossy brochure across my kitchen counter. I looked at it. It was one of those upscale assisted living facilities, the kind that costs $8,000 a month and smells like industrial air freshener trying to mask something darker. "I'm not going to a nursing home," I said simply. "It's not a nursing home, Dad," Jessica said with exaggerated patience. "It's a community. You'll have friends, structure, care." "I don't need care. I need my home." Michael's jaw tightened. This was the look he got when a deal wasn't going his way. "Dad, this isn't a negotiation. We've already put down the deposit. You move in April 1st. That gives you 3 weeks to pack." 3 weeks. They'd given me 3 weeks to dismantle 40 years of my life. "In this place?" I asked, looking around at my lodge. "We'll handle it," Jessica said quickly. Too quickly. "Michael's company is expanding. We need a corporate retreat space, somewhere we can bring clients, host executive offsites. This location is perfect." There it was. They didn't want me safe. They wanted my property. "The company," I said slowly, "needs my house." "It's not just your house anymore, Dad," Michael said, and his voice had an edge now. "It's a resource that's being wasted. You live here alone. We could use this space to generate 7 figures in client relationships." Generate, use, resource. He was talking about my home, the place where he grew up, where his mother died, like it was a line item on a spreadsheet. "No," I said. The temperature in the room dropped. Jessica stopped taking pictures. Michael stared at me. "What did you say?" I said, "No, this is my home. I'm not leaving." Michael's face flushed red. "Dad, you don't understand the position you're in. We're trying to help you. By taking my house? By making sure you're cared for," he shouted, finally showing his real frustration. "You can't take care of yourself anymore. You forget things. You don't eat properly. Last time I was here, There was expired food in your fridge. That expired yogurt was from 2 months ago when I'd been in Singapore for 3 weeks. But I didn't explain. I was beginning to understand that explanations didn't matter to them. Jessica walked over to Michael and put her hand on his arm. Honey, maybe we should show him the papers. Papers? My stomach went cold. Michael reached into his coat and pulled out a legal document. He placed it on the counter with the kind of reverence usually reserved for a weapon. This, he said, is a medical power of attorney. I'm filing it with the county tomorrow. I picked it up. I'm not a lawyer, but I've read enough contracts in my life to know what I was looking at. This document would give Michael complete control over my medical decisions, my living situation, my entire life, based on my supposed cognitive decline. You can't do this, I said. We can, and we are, Jessica said. Her voice had gone cold, stripped of the fake concern. We have documentation. You forgot to pay your property taxes last year. I'd been in Tokyo. My accountant handled it late, but it was handled. You refused to see a doctor for your knee. I'd refused the unnecessary surgery they'd been pushing. My knee was fine. And, Michael said, his voice quiet now, almost sad, we have a notarized statement from Dr. Patterson saying you're showing early signs of dementia. Dr. Patterson, Michael's college roommate. The one who'd been trying to get me to do an expensive and completely elective cardiac workup for the past year. I looked at my son, at this man I'd raised, put through business school, supported through 2 failed startups before he finally landed on his feet. I looked at his wife, wearing jewelry I'd bought her for Christmas, and I understood something fundamental had broken between us. When do I need to be out? I asked quietly. Michael blinked, surprised. He'd expected a fight. April 1st, 3 weeks. And if I'm not, then we'll file for emergency medical intervention and have you removed, Jessica said flatly. For your own safety. I nodded slowly. I set down my coffee mug. I walked past them, went to my bedroom, and pulled out the old duffel bag I used for camping. I started packing. I could hear them in the living room, already planning, already talking about contractors and feng shui and which walls to knock down. 20 minutes later, I walked back through. They'd made themselves comfortable on my couch. Jessica was on her laptop, probably messaging her designer. I'll be out by the end of the week, I told them. Michael actually looked relieved. Guilty, but relieved. Dad, this is for the best. You'll see. You'll love Silver Peak. They have a woodworking shop and everything. A woodworking shop. Like a toy for a child who needed to be kept busy. I didn't argue. I just picked up my keys, grabbed my coat, and walked out of my own home. As I got into my truck, my old 2012 Ford F, 250 with 200,000 miles on it, I could see them through the window. They were already rearranging furniture. I drove. Not to Silver Peak Senior Living, not to some cheap motel. I drove straight to Denver International Airport. I parked in long-term parking, walked into the terminal, and headed directly to the United Club Lounge. The woman at the desk smiled at me. Welcome back, Mr. Hartley. Your usual? Yes. Thank you, Maria. She swiped my Premier Platinum card and waved me through. I found a quiet corner, ordered a bourbon, neat, and pulled out my phone. I had one call to make. He answered on the first ring. Robert, to what do I owe the pleasure? Marcus Chen, my attorney for the past 20 years. The man who'd structured every one of my deals, managed every acquisition, hidden every asset. Marcus, I said, my voice calm. Code Sarah. There was a long pause on the other end. When he spoke again, his voice had changed completely. All business, no warmth. Are you certain? Execute it. The lodge? Sell it. Today, if possible. I want a cash buyer. I don't care about the price. I care about speed. Can you close it before end of business tomorrow? I have 3 buyers who've been circling that property for years. Consider it done? Good. One more thing. Sir, that penthouse in Denver? The one Michael and Jessica live in. There was another pause. The Harbor Point property, owned by RH Investments, LLC. That's the one. Start eviction proceedings. Give them 48 hours. Understood. Anything else? Yes. Mountain Ridge Capital. The company Michael works for. The one where you hold the senior debt? Call it in. All of it. Today. I could hear Marcus typing. That will collapse the company within 72 hours. I know. Robert, just so I'm clear, you're about to render your son homeless and unemployed simultaneously. I'm aware. Initiating now. Expect confirmation within the hour. I hung up. I sat there in that quiet lounge, surrounded by business travelers and tourists, and I took a long sip of my bourbon. You see, my son Michael thought he knew who I was. He saw the old truck, the flannel shirts, the simple life in the mountains. He saw a man who lived modestly, who never talked about money, who seemed to barely get by. What he didn't see was the Robert Hartley, who'd sold his first software company in 1995 for $45 million. The Robert Hartley who'd spent the next 30 years quietly building one of the most successful venture capital portfolios in the tech sector. The Robert Hartley whose current net worth, as of this morning, was $90 million. He saw his poor old dad. He didn't see the man who'd been funding his lifestyle his entire adult life. The text from Marcus came through 40 minutes later. Lodge sold. Buyer is James Mitchell. Cash closing tomorrow at 10 a.m. Harbor Point eviction filed. Mountain Ridge capital call issued. James Mitchell. Perfect. He was the CEO of Summit Dynamics, the company that had been trying to poach Michael for the past 2 years. The same company Michael had called a sinking ship full of has-beens. I finished my bourbon and booked a ticket. Not to Florida, not to Arizona, to Iceland. I'd always wanted to see the northern lights, and Sarah had promised we'd go someday. Tomorrow morning, I'd be watching them alone, but I'd be free. That night, I imagine, Michael and Jessica slept soundly in their penthouse, dreaming of their new corporate retreat space. They had no idea what was coming. At exactly 10 o'clock the next morning, 2 things happened simultaneously. My attorney Marcus and James Mitchell were shaking hands in a Denver law office, finalizing the sale of my lodge. And in Aspen, Michael and Jessica's Range Rover was pulling into my driveway. Based on what Marcus told me later, I can picture exactly how it went down. Michael had taken the day off work. This was a big day, taking possession of the property. They'd already hired contractors to start work Monday. Jessica had her designer flying in from Los Angeles that afternoon. They were early, excited, like kids on Christmas morning. Michael pulled out his key and walked up to the front door. Jessica was right behind him, already on the phone. Yes, the stone fireplace has to go. I'm thinking a modern glass installation. Very minimalist. Michael put the key in the lock. It didn't turn. He jiggled it. Nothing. He tried again, harder this time. What's wrong? Jessica asked, hanging up. The lock. It's not working. Did he change the locks already? That paranoid old man. Just break a window, Jessica said. It's our property now anyway. But before Michael could decide which window to break, they heard something. The crunch of gravel. A car coming up the driveway. A sleek Audi pulled up behind their Range Rover, blocking them in. Out stepped a man in his 50s, well-dressed, confident. This was James Mitchell, though they didn't know it yet. Can I help you? Michael called out, annoyed at the interruption. The man smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. I think the question is, can I help you? You're on my property. Jessica laughed. Your property? This belongs to Robert Hartley. I'm his daughter-in-law. Belonged, the man corrected. Past tense. I'm James Mitchell. I purchased this property yesterday. Closed at 10 a.m. this morning. You're currently trespassing. The color drained from Michael's face. That's impossible. He can't sell it. We filed papers. He's mentally incompetent. Really? James pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then showed them the screen. Because I have a fully executed deed of sale, notarized by the state of Colorado, signed by Robert Hartley and his attorney, Marcus Chen. The sale was for $4.2 million, all cash. The transfer is complete and recorded with the counter. 4.2? Jessica whispered. The property's worth 5. He accepted less for a fast closing, James said with a shrug. Smart man. Knew what he wanted. Michael was hyperventilating now. No, this is fraud. We'll sue. We'll sue him, we'll sue you, We'll sue everyone. Please do, James said, his voice turning ice cold. I'd love to see you stand up in court and explain how you tried to commit medical fraud against your own father to steal his property. I have copies of your so-called medical power of attorney. My lawyers had a good laugh, especially the part where you got your buddy Dr. Patterson to falsify a dementia diagnosis. Michael's face went white. Now, James continued, pulling out his own phone. You have two choices. You can leave right now, quietly, or I can call the sheriff and have you both arrested for trespassing and attempted fraud. What's it going to be? They left. They stumbled back to their Range Rover and drove away in silence. The drive back to Denver was, I imagine, the longest 2.5 hours of their lives. Michael's hands shaking on the wheel, Jessica staring out the window in shock. Call him, Jessica finally said. Call your father. Michael dialed my number. Straight to voicemail. I was somewhere over Greenland at that point, but they didn't know that. Dad, it's Michael. What did you do? Call me back. We need to talk about this. There's been a mistake. No mistake, just consequences. They got back to their penthouse around 1 p.m. Jessica immediately poured herself wine. Michael was pacing, calling lawyers, calling his father's old friends, trying to find me. Then, at exactly 2 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Michael opened it to find a woman in a professional suit, holding a clipboard. Michael Hartley? Yes? You've been served. She handed him a thick envelope and walked away. Michael stood there, staring at the envelope. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely open it. What is it? Jessica demanded. He pulled out the papers. His voice came out as a whisper. It's an eviction notice. What? That's impossible. We own this place. It was your father's gift to us when we got married. Michael was reading, his eyes scanning faster and faster. No, we don't own it. We never owned it. This is from RH Investments, LLC. It says we're tenants. It says our lease is terminated effective in 48 hours. Jessica grabbed the papers from him. Attached was a copy of a document they'd both signed 7 years ago. A document they thought was just paperwork for the property transfer. A document that was actually a residential lease agreement. $500 a month rent. At-will tenancy. Terminable at any time. He tricked us, Jessica breathed. Your father tricked us. We signed it, Michael said, his voice dead. We just signed whatever he put in front of us. We didn't read it. Jessica was frantically searching through the papers. This says the landlord is RH Investments. Who is that? Robert Hartley, Michael said. R.H. Those are his initials. They stood there in silence, understanding slowly crushing them. Then Michael's phone rang. It was his boss at Mountain Ridge Capital. Michael, where are you? We need you in the office immediately. What's wrong? Everything. Our senior debt holder just called in all our loans. All of them. $30 million due in full by end of business Friday. We're scrambling to find emergency funding. Get here now. Michael hung up. He looked at Jessica. Who holds the senior debt on my company? She stared at him. No, I need to find out. He pulled up the company documents on his laptop. He'd never looked at this before. Never cared who the silent investors were. He found it. Senior debt holder, RH Capital Partners. Robert Hartley. His father owned the debt. His father owned his job. His father had owned everything, the entire time, and he'd just called it all in. Michael collapsed into a chair. He owns everything. The company I work for. This apartment. He probably owns the car we drive. The Range Rover? Jessica asked weakly. Michael pulled up the registration. Leased through RH Automotive LLC. We have nothing, Michael whispered. We have absolutely nothing. And in 48 hours, we won't even have a place to live. By Friday morning, I was in Reykjavik, watching the sunrise over volcanic rock. My phone had dozens of messages. Voicemails from Michael, from Jessica, from lawyers, from friends asking what was happening. I deleted them all without listening. Marcus called with the final report. Mountain Ridge Capital has filed for bankruptcy. Michael was let go this morning. The Harbor Point eviction is proceeding as scheduled. They have until Sunday to vacate. And the personal accounts? The trust fund that's been paying Jessica's credit cards? Terminated. Michael's expense account? Closed. The supplementary accounts? All frozen. Michael had thought he was successful. He earned a good salary, had a nice title. What he didn't know was that his salary barely covered his Starbucks habit. Everything else, the penthouse, the car, the lifestyle, had been quietly subsidized by trusts and accounts I controlled. His mother had wanted to help him get started. I'd continued it after she passed, thinking I was helping him build a life. I wasn't helping. I was enabling. I was teaching him that money appeared magically, that he never had to struggle, never had to build anything real, and now he was about to learn what real struggle felt like. By Sunday evening, they were in a motel off I-70, the kind that charges by the week and doesn't ask questions. They'd managed to pack 2 suitcases before the sheriff's deputies arrived to supervise the eviction. On Monday morning, Michael finally reached me. I'd unblocked his number because I knew this call would come. "Dad," his voice was broken. "Please, we need to talk." "Talk," I said. I was sitting in a cafe in Reykjavik, watching people walk by, living their simple, honest lives. "I don't understand. Why are you doing this to us?" "I'm not doing anything to you, Michael. I'm simply removing the things that were mine. The house was mine. The apartment was mine. The company debt was mine. I'm just taking back what belongs to me. But I'm your son. You were going to put me in a home, Michael. You were going to have me declared mentally incompetent. You were going to steal my house, the place where your mother died, and turn it into a corporate retreat. I was trying to help you." "No, you were trying to help yourself. There's a difference." Silence on the line. Then Jessica's voice in the background, sharp and desperate. "Tell him we'll drop everything. Tell him we'll apologize." "Jessica wants to apologize," Michael said. "I'm sure she does. Now that the money's gone." "Dad, please. We have nothing. No job, no home, no savings. We're staying in a motel. We can't even afford to eat." I took a sip of my coffee. This was the moment. This was where most fathers would break, would save their son from the consequences of his own actions, would throw him a rope. "Michael, do you know what I was doing when you were born?" "What?" "I was working 16-hour days at a software startup. Your mother and I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Boulder. We had $847 in our checking account. I was 26 years old with a newborn son and no safety net. No rich parents to bail me out, no trust funds, just me, my skills, and a desperate need to provide for my family." "That's different." "How? You had Mom? You had each other? You have Jessica. That's not fair." "Life isn't fair, Michael. That's the point. I built everything I have from nothing. Everything you've had. Your education, your apartments, your cars, your jobs. I either gave it to you or arranged it for you. And you learn nothing from any of it except that things should be easy. That money appears when you need it. That your father is a resource to be managed and eventually disposed of. That's not true. You told me I was moving to assisted living in 3 weeks. You didn't ask. You told me." Silence. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "You're going to get a job. A real job, not one I arranged. You're going to figure out how to pay rent, buy groceries, live within your means. You're going to learn what it means to build something instead of inheriting it. And then what? Then you'll forgive us?" "I don't know, Michael. That depends on who you become." I heard Jessica crying in the background. "Dad, please," Michael begged. "At least give us something. Enough to get an apartment, just to start over." I thought about it. I thought about my son, nearly 40 years old, begging his father for rent money. And I thought about the hard lesson I'd learned too late, that giving someone everything is the same as giving them nothing. "I'll give you one thing," I said. "I'll pay for 1 month's rent on a modest apartment. 1 month. After that, you're on your own." "Thank you. Thank you, Dad." "Don't thank me. This isn't a gift. This is the last time I save you from yourself. After this, you stand or fall on your own merit." I wired them $1,200. Enough for first month and deposit on a small place. Not the penthouse. Not the luxury they'd known. A real apartment in a working neighborhood. Then I blocked their numbers again and went back to watching the northern lights dance across the Arctic sky. 6 months later, I was back in the States. Not in Colorado. I'd bought a small ranch in Montana, a place where I could see mountains, but didn't have ghosts in every room. Marcus called me one afternoon. Thought you'd want to know. Michael got a job. Oh? Sales position at a regional software firm. Makes about $60,000 a year. That's good. Jessica's working too. Retail management. I didn't say anything. They're still in that apartment you got them. No car. They take the bus. How do you know all this? I keep tabs, just in case. In case of what? In case you want to know if the lesson took. Did it? I wondered. Did my son finally learn that respect isn't automatic, that family doesn't give you the right to take, that kindness isn't weakness? A week later, a letter arrived at my new address. Handwritten, not typed, from Michael. Dad, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I needed to write it anyway. You were right. About everything. I was entitled. I was greedy. I saw you as an obstacle, not as my father. Jessica and I are living differently now. We work. We struggle. We appreciate every dollar. I understand what you were trying to teach me, even if the lesson almost destroyed me. I don't expect you to respond to this. I don't expect anything anymore. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand. Your son, Michael. I read it 3 times. I put it in my desk drawer. I didn't respond. Not yet. Maybe someday. Maybe when I see proof that the change is real, that it's permanent. Maybe when he stops being the son who tried to steal my home and becomes the son I raised to have integrity. Or maybe never. Maybe some breaks can't be repaired. I learned something through all of this. Something it took me 64 years to understand. I confused generosity with love for too long. I thought that giving my son everything would make him happy, would make him love me, would make him successful. But real love isn't about giving people what they want. It's about giving them what they need. And what Michael needed was to fall, to struggle, to learn that the world doesn't owe him anything. Sarah used to tell me, Robert, don't mistake kindness for weakness. I thought I understood what she meant. But I didn't. Not really. Not until I had to choose between saving my son from consequences or saving him from himself. I chose myself. I chose my dignity. I chose to let him fall. And maybe, just maybe, someday he'll learn to stand on his own. The books are balanced now. The order is restored. I'm in Montana, living simply, watching elk graze in my pasture. The $90 million sits in accounts I'll probably never spend. Maybe I'll give it to charity. Maybe I'll leave it to causes Sarah cared about. Maybe I'll give Michael another chance when he proves he deserves one. But today, I'm free. Free from the burden of propping up someone else's life. Free from being seen as a resource instead of a person. Free from the weight of conditional love. I spent 40 years building wealth. I spent 3 years mourning my wife. And I spent 1 week reclaiming my dignity. That week cost me my son, at least for now, maybe forever. But it gave me back myself. And I'd make the same choice again. So I ask you, was I wrong? Did I go too far? Or is this the only way some people learn that actions have consequences, that family doesn't give you the right to take, that respect is earned, not inherited? Let me know in the comments what you would have done, because this lesson, it cost me everything to learn it, and I want to know if the price was worth it.